Welcome to toy-polloi. No Legos were harmed in the making of this video.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now today we're going to be looking at doing some repairs on this vintage 1983 Bandai Popy Terrahawks Battlehawk. Now if you watched my channel before you'll know that I do like Jeremy Anderson's Terrahawks quite a lot. It's a great show and I always thought the ship designs were particularly nice. And this is one that I've had in my sort of to-do box for quite a long time. As you can see, this is the Battlehawk from the show, but it's a little bit sort of battered and beaten. It's missing the wings on the front here. There's supposed to be a couple of little wings that come out either side of this sort of cockpit area. It's got a couple of prongs missing off the back of it. All the chrome is very sort of damaged and battered, and it just generally looks a little bit rough. Now I don't think this needs a full restoration. I think if we can just sort of do some repairs like the ones I've just mentioned, it would actually look like a much more displayable vehicle, because the rest of it is in pretty good shape. It's really quite a sturdy toy. You can open the front here, there's a little ramp that pulls out like so. That all works, nothing is broken on that. It has a under section here where a tank drops out of. I do actually have the tank. You can press a button there and that sort of fires these doors open. There's a little sort of pick-up mechanism there that's supposed to pick the tank up. That all works. The rear door works. If we go to the back, there's another little button here. If I push that, you can see that opens so we can get into the back of the vehicle. So overall everything is sort of working. It's just looking a bit sort of rough around the edges. So today we're going to do some repair work on this and see if we can make it more of a displayable vehicle, because it certainly has enough there that it's worth fixing. So the first thing I want to do is actually sort of decide what I want to fix on this toy. So the wings at the front definitely need replacing, because without those it doesn't look complete. Also a lot of this chrome is damaged, so we can use some the liquid chrome Molotow pens to repair the chrome on all of these areas. You can see all of these sort of landing gear pieces, although intact, the chrome has worn off them, and these are supposed to be little zeroids on the side here, the zeroids that you see in the show, like 101 here, and they're supposed to be chrome plated. All of that is damaged, likewise on the back, little jets and that, so that would make quite a big difference. It's also missing the two little prongs that come off the back of this wing, although that's minor. I think that should be easily fixable. And then there's some sort of paint touch-ups. Now as I say, I don't want to sort of strip all the paint off this and start again, because really I don't think it's necessary, but we can certainly repair the paint around here. Again, that needs to be chromed, and this orange stripe I'm hoping we can just sort of paint on and generally make it look a bit better. I don't want this to be a sort of a mint example of the toy. I just want it to be a nicer version of the toy. Now that we've decided all the things that we want to do with it, we've got to take this apart, and these old Bandai toys are very nice for that, because it's all screwed together. So on the bottom you can see there are 6 screws which look like they hold the bulk of this together. So I'll take those out and we'll see what happens. Well, that first stage was really nice and easy. You can see it just comes apart. The only bits that fell out were these 2 little pieces at the back. That's the latch that holds this rear ramp in place, and the other sort of thruster on the other side. So we can put those to one side and now start taking a look at everything else. This is the hook that picks up the battle tank. We take that out. And then that's the base part of the toy, which is all made out of plastic. And on this it just needs a bit of a clean, so I'll go and do that separately. Otherwise I'm not going to take much more of this apart. I think I will take these feet off so that we can paint those. You can see they're again just held on by screws. The front one I don't actually need to take off. I think I can just, there should be a screw hole on one side, so I'm just going to unscrew that to take off those sort of the plastic part. And on the back part here, I don't know if I will remove both of them. I can just unscrew the screws on either side to get those pieces off that need rechroming. Everything else I think I'll leave in place. This little button here, I can just chrome that in place. I think it may be I come to unscrew that just to make it a little bit easier, but for now I don't think I will. I will just remove the feet. Then we can go onto the top section and we can start to see what we need to do here. Again, everything is screwed in place, so where the wings go on the front, there's one screw there, and I can unscrew that, and then we'll see what is broken and how we can make a new version of it. And on the back I want to take these wings off and this plastic piece here, and again it looks like those are possibly screwed in place. That plastic piece Not sure. Yeah, I think if we take out all of these screws anyway, we should be able to get some more sort of access to these. So let's undo a few more screws and we'll see what happens. It's quite interesting to see as you take this apart, the sort of construction that went into it. It's a very nicely designed toy. So this whole top section is made out of die-cast metal and everything else is made out of various bits of plastic. You can see there's all these little chromed pieces. These all come out individually and quite a lot of them have the chrome missing. Some are actually in reasonable condition, especially on the back side where they're sort of hidden inside. You can see that chrome is really quite nice and fresh. It's just the stuff on the top that's worn away. And also we can see here inside, I didn't notice this when I sort of took the top off, there's a tiny little spring there that is used to do this sort of latching mechanism that holds the back door shut. So we have to remember that that is there. I'm going to take that bit of plastic out again just so it's kept safe. That spring is actually pretty firmly held in, so I'm not going to remove that. And we can also see the sort of aging that has gone on the paint here. Under where the plastic was, you can see the paint is still very nice and silver, and sort of round the edges it has yellowed and aged a bit. I could respray this, but I really don't plan to on this one because I want to keep this quite original. I just want to fix some of the main defects that are on this toy. So that's the top section, and then on the back there are two plastic pieces. So this is the main sort of cover, you can see, made out of orange plastic and spray painted silver. Again, I could sort of fix that up, but it would mean taking off these stickers and either making some replacements or finding replacements, and I'm not going to do that again. I will clean this up, give it a good wash, and hopefully that will look a lot nicer. And then this is the sort of rear wings. You can see the two bits that have snapped off where the plastic has sort of got weak and it's got a bit damaged, so we'll repair that as well. But first up, I think I'll give everything a good clean, just make sure it's a little bit sort of neater and tidier. So a bit of hot soapy water. I'm not actually going to show that this time. I've shown it so many times in videos. It's something I do all the toys when I take them apart, is give them a good clean, and once it's all clean we can start trying to fix some of these issues. The first thing I'm going to do is actually deal with the chrome, just because it takes longest and it takes longest to dry. I'm going to be using these Molotow liquid chrome pens, which I've shown multiple times on this channel for sort of fixing chrome on Transformers and Micronauts and things like that. It's great for sort of touching up damaged chrome like this, but it does take a long time to dry. It dries sort of touch dry within an hour or so, but if you handle it, it dulls down very quickly, so you really need to let it dry for a good couple of weeks, and then the surface is very nice and firm and you shouldn't have any problems with sort of handling it anymore. So for this I'm going to touch up all the chrome pieces. I've got two different sizes of the pens here. I've got a 1mm nib, which is a smaller one. I've also got a 4mm nib, and I'm going to go around all of the bits of chrome and touch them up. And what I've done is, on most pieces where they've got screws, I've added the screws back in so I can hold the screw and do the work, and on other pieces where I can't sort of hold them without touching areas, I'm going to just put them on my tweezers and I'll draw around, sort of colour around them, and make sure that I don't touch them, and then I'm just going to leave them on this cutting mat in a sort of neat position, and I'm going to leave them for a few weeks. It's a dull job, but it needs to be done. So let's get started on rechroming the damaged chrome on these pieces. And there you go, you can see the difference that that has already made to these little chromed pieces. I'll just sort of move it around so you can see the sort of glint in them. They look an awful lot better. These sort of rear exhaust pieces here were very yellowed, where all the chrome had worn off and you're seeing the under sort of lying plastic, but with that new coat of the Molotow pen, it's looking really nice. So as I say, I'm going to go and leave these for about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month if I've got other projects on, just so that they get full time to dry, and then I can come back and sort of start touching up the orange paint on these sort of little intake areas of sort of vents or whatever they are. And in the meantime, I'll get on with fixing the rest of the Battlehawk. For the next stage, I want to make a replacement wing to go on the front of this Battlehawk, because that is all that remains of the original wing. Luckily though, I do have an original Battlehawk here that I can use as a template. So this is what the wing should look like. You can see it's a nice straight wing that just goes across the front portion. And what I've done is I've made some measurements from that and then drawn that onto some 2mm styrene sheet. Now 2mm styrene sheet should be the perfect thickness that we can sort of make a recreation of that wing. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be close enough. So you can see I've already marked it on here, and I've actually already scored this with a knife. Now at the end I will actually scan this in and put a copy of it on toy-polloi.com if you want to sort of make your own replacement wing, because it's not the sort of thing I can describe sort of easily on camera what I'm doing. But basically I've just taken measurements of everything and sort of marked it out quite roughly. So these are all quite sort of harsh edges. The final wing, you can see it's got nice curves to it, so I'll be sort of filing those down. But this is my basic starting point, and as I say, I've already scored these, so the styrene breaks incredibly well if you just sort of score along the lines with a knife. So you can see here I take my pliers and I can snap off all the pieces, and we'll end up with a little bit in the middle, which is what I need. So I'm just going to sort of work my way around this. It will snap quite nicely. If you cut everything sort of properly, it's very easy to do. And then, as I say, I'm going to use sort of various files and sandpaper, and I will tidy this shape up. But you can see that is the basic shape. Now these bits are going to be a little bit awkward to break out. You can see there's a tiny little point on the ends of the wings, and I have put those there. I'm hoping that if I go slowly, I will be able to snap this and not snap those off. But we'll see. Just take everything sort of slowly. It is all scored, so it should just break. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that looks good. Right, once that's off, I'm going to start filing and sanding. But maybe first we should do a little test fit. You can see that's certainly a rough shape of the wing. I've just done a couple of other little tidy ups there because there's supposed to be a notch in the front there. But let's try and push this in, and we'll see what it looks like. I'm hoping this will fit. Going to be a sort of tight fit, but yeah, as you can see, that's already not looking too bad. So by the time I've filed this down and sort of smoothed all the edges and rounded everything, I think we're going to have a good replacement wing there. So let's get filing and sanding, and I'll get this shaped a little bit better. I've got some small sort of needle files here, I've got some nail files, and I've got some sandpaper. I'm literally just going to work my way around this and smooth everything down and round it all off, and then we should end up with something that looks the part. So here you go, after sort of about 10 minutes work, I've got this version of the wing, which I'm really quite happy with. I've rounded all of the edges and made them nice and smooth and sort of just softened them all really, and it really does feel like the original wing now. Obviously it's completely the wrong colour, but it's got about the same sort of strength and firmness as the original one had. In fact, I think it's probably a bit stronger, because this plastic, they've actually sort of scored or put some lines across sort of horizontally here, and that's what makes it really weak, because you can push on that and it will snap. This one's got a lot more flex to it. So what I need to do now is drill that hole in the middle. You can see I've marked there. On the original one there is a hole, and that is because the fixing for this front little flap goes through that hole. So I'm going to drill that size hole into this piece, and then I'm going to give it a quick sort of spray undercoat just to make it grey, so that when I do come to paint it, the paint will stick a lot nicer. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to bother filming it, it's very simple. Drill a hole and spray it with some undercoat. But that is the basis for the new front wing for this Battlehawk, and I'm really very pleased with how that looks already. So there you go. a hole cut in the middle of it. I've done a little bit of modification to that because my hole wasn't quite large enough, but you can see with a little bit of filing, that plastic piece that holds the little ramp on at the front now fits quite nicely through that newly cut hole. And as you can see, I've also given it a quick undercoat, although I did notice something when I'd undercoated this, that the little screw hole there actually had some raised edges to it, so when you push this in, it actually scratches along the top surface. So I've now filed that down, and when we put that in, that fits really quite nicely. I could actually just leave it in that grey. It looks quite good, but the original fins have this orange stripe around the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint these orange, then I'm going to mask it off and paint the silver bit on afterwards. And I'm going to be just using some Humbrol acrylics. I don't really have that many orange paints, but I have this one, which is RC420, which is quite a vibrant orange, so should match quite nicely. And I've also found in my pot of sort of paints, I've got this very old Humbrol acrylic colour, which is a gloss silver. You can see it's got a little bit of a silvery effect, and I think that might quite sort of match the original. I don't really know, I'm just sort of winging it on this one. So I'm going to get this painted and we'll see what it looks like when it's done. It could look horrid, but you know, there's always hope that this will just work and it will just look quite nice. But already this is looking a lot better. So let's get these wings or fins painted. Now, I don't actually have any masking tape due to lockdown because I've not been able to get down to my local model shop, so I'm just going to be using some, this is actually electrical tape. It's quite nice stuff because it's quite rubbery and it doesn't actually have that much stick to it, so I'm hoping that it will have enough stick that it won't let the paint bleed, but not enough stick that it will pull any of the paint off underneath. And really, I'm just going to give it a try. So again, I'm using this as the paint I showed you earlier. This is Humbrol Gloss Silver. Now, this is a really old pot of paint that I've had for absolute years. I don't think they actually make this anymore, but the number for it is 5191, but I'm sure any sort of silver paint would work. Let's just give this a try. So I've got some on my little bit of paper here, and we'll paint it on. I would imagine it will need a few coats just to cover this orange. Yeah, it's definitely going to need a few coats. It's quite a weak sort of paint, so hopefully this will work. Just have to give it a go. I ended up having a few issues with this silver paint. It's not the nicest of paints to work with, and that masking didn't work at all. So in the end, I've actually just painted that by hand. It doesn't look amazing out sort of side like this, but I think by the time that is in the vehicle, it will do a very nice job. So let's go ahead and we'll fit this to the front of the Battlehawk and see what it looks like. So here you can see my new wing compared to an original one on the left. The paint is not quite the right colour of paint, and if we weren't in this sort of lockdown situation, I would certainly go out and buy a slightly more vibrant orange paint. But overall, the shape is quite nice and the sort of finish is quite nice, and it does make the ship look pretty good. I think if I make myself a couple of little stickers maybe in the future and stick those on, it would look just as good. But yeah, that's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Let's get on with fixing some other parts of this ship. For the missing spikes on the back of this rear wing, you can see here that's an original one, so they just stick out of about sort of 5mm. I'm going to be using some styrene rod. I've got this 2mm styrene rod. You can see here I've got like loads of it in a little packet. This is made by a company called Evergreen. These are 2mm thick and round. All I'm going to do is I'm going to shape that using a file to give it a sort of slightly tapered end, and then I will cut them to sort of match the brakes on here, and I'll stick it on with some plastic weld. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes to make a good replacement, and then we can paint that up as well. So first thing to do is I'm just going to shape them, and then we'll start sort of cutting them to fit and make sure that they fit nicely and get them stuck. Now that those two bits are dry, we can go ahead and paint them. I'm also going to paint the orange stripes on these two bits that we've done with the Chrome. Now, as I said, I haven't got an orange that I'm particularly happy with. I've tried mixing a few more. I've brought in a 238, which is a red. I've got this 99 or 66, I never know which one it is, of the yellow, and the RC420. And I've mixed them together. I've got a slightly better shade of orange, but it's still not perfect. So when lockdown is over and I can actually get to my model shop, I'll go and see if I can find a better sort of paint. But for now, this will do. I can always come back to this sort of project later on. You can see even just sort of painting that on, it will hide it enough. It's not going to be a perfect match, but it's certainly going to hide it enough, and it will actually dry a little bit darker. And by the time I put a sort of a top coat, a sort of clear gloss onto that, just to give it a sort of shine, I don't think most people will notice. And for my display that I'm sort of doing this for, that will look just fine. But if you wanted to do this more accurately, a better shade of orange paint certainly wouldn't go amiss. But as I've said before, it's not a colour I tend to use that often, so I don't have that many sort of shades of it in my paint selection. But we can sort of make do. Certainly we can make do. There you go, those painted orange. Don't think you'll notice those at all. And I'm going to do the same here onto these little bits that we've chromed. I did already give this one a coat of paint just to sort of check the orange colour. That's not too bad. It's not quite as vibrant, but it will certainly do the job. Again, with the gloss top coat is on that, it will look fine. So let's get this other one painted, and then it will be time to start putting the whole Battlehawk back together. Okay, well, it's now a few days later, and I put a top coat onto the orange that I painted onto the sort of engine parts, and everything is looking quite nice. I think I might have been a bit sort of critical of the orange paint. It certainly matches pretty well. As I say, I might come back to this just to sort of redo it. I'll get a different shade of orange, but actually that looks all right. And these pieces here, if we hold them up against the body of the vehicle, there's a slight sort of difference in orange tone, but it's not too bad. So I think by the time this is all put back together, it will look quite nice. As you can see now, all of the chromed pieces have dried pretty well. So the next stage is just to put this back together, and it's a case of reversing all the things I did at the start, putting each piece back on, and screwing the whole vehicle back together. So I'll just get that all done, and we can take a look at the final result. And here you go, here is the finished Battlehawk. You may have noticed in my little bit of previous footage there of putting it back together, I actually forgot to put in the little hook that picks up the battle tank, so I had to take it all apart to put that piece back in. Sometimes that happens when you're sort of putting toys back together. You just forget one stage and there's nothing you can do but sort of go back and start again. So that's what I did. But as you can see, the end result on this Battlehawk, it's definitely not a perfect example of a Battlehawk, but it was never intended to be. What I wanted was something that would look a lot better better on display, and certainly replacing those wings at the front makes it look complete, and fixing all of the chrome. You can see it's now actually quite nice and shiny, the chrome. It's again not perfect, but it just looks a whole load better. It really makes quite a big difference to it. And even though the rest of the paintwork is still a little bit sort of scruffy and sort of battered around the edges, the end result is that it does look very nice, and it's certainly something that I would put on display here. As you can see, this is a little battle tank. This hooks inside this vehicle. I've previously done a review of the Battlehawk, so go and check that out, but that hooks inside it. And on top here there should be a tiny version of the Terrahawk, but in all my years of collecting I've never found a loose one, so I'm still missing that. You can actually see on the stickers this little pattern here is where the wings should sort of fold down and it locks in place, and then there is a launching mechanism here. You can sort of fire the Terrahawk off, and I'm guessing it is incredibly small and it is incredibly fragile, so they're easily broken, and over the years they've probably got chucked in the bin, which is why I still don't have one. So if you have a spare one, drop me a line, because I'd love to finally make me able to sort of complete my Battlehawk. But for now, this looks a lot nicer. You can see it's worth doing sort of these extra little bits of sort of repair on something like this. It's a nice toy. It's very sort of collectible toy, but they are always sort of missing these wings at the front. They just break so easily, and again these little sort of posts at the back snap off. I don't think I've ever seen one with those without sort of stress marks on them or missing as they were on here. So that is my sort of repair guide for this Battlehawk. It's not a restoration because I've not done all the work. I've just sort of repaired the worst areas. I hope you found this video enjoyable. If you have, then make sure and hit the subscribe button, tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.